Hey, I know it's been a very long time, but exams are finally over, and yeah, I can finally enjoy life again. A lot of people have been sending me questions saying like, "How did your exams go?" And they went pretty well actually. I got a first and came top of the year in pharmacology, which I'm pretty damn chuffed about. Going to start clinical school at the beginning of September, which I'm really looking forward to. And over this summer, I intend to make quite a lot of videos to put onto YouTube, not only to answer your questions, but also to try and fill up the earlier request of my story and the lessons I learnt from it as I was going along, which I will try and do as intricately as possible and hopefully on a week on week basis because I'm so free at the moment. But yeah, so before I start doing those, I'd like to sort of summarize my eating disorder experience in like a minute. Let's see if I can do that. So yeah, when I was about 13, um, I was subject to quite a lot of bullying at school, and not only that, but the home environment was quite hostile. So, you know, I was at school and I was bullied, I was at home and I was always in arguments. So I never really had a place where I could just be happy. And as such, I just remember thinking to myself, I could start controlling what I eat. And I don't know why this clicked in my mind as it did, but it did. And as such, I started to think to myself, okay, I'll just start eating healthy from now on. So I started cutting out things from my diet like chocolate, fizzy drinks, and everything. And it was only about 6 months down the line that like one of my friends and my family, they were pointing out to me that all I was eating essentially was very lean meats and potato. I was not being very diverse, and when they tried to offer me a food to eat, I just wouldn't be able to do it. And it was at that point when people started to think that I might have an eating disorder. So I was at the age of about 14. I was put into an eating disorders unit called Rhodes Farm, which is seen in the documentary that I was in. And I was there for 19 weeks. Full on 19 weeks as an inpatient. And over that time, I was given all the control was taken away from me. So I couldn't control what I ate. Exercise was heavily controlled. And on top of that, I was put into therapy to, try and rationalize the way I was thinking and to try and make me feel better about having this control taken away from me. Because as I was going along, of course, I developed obsessive compulsive disorder where I would continuously wash my hands, for example. And yeah, over the course of 19 weeks, I definitely got a lot better. I was released, but then I subsequently relapsed within 6 weeks, put back in for another, I think, 6 to 8 weeks, and I went back for weekends for about another year. And it was only by the time that I went to university that I actually thought to myself, one minute, I'm finally not counting calories and I'm really enjoying the food that I eat. Not over exercising at all. I barely exercise now. I'm horrendously unfit at the moment. But yeah, I think the change of environment, going to university, coming to Cambridge to study medicine, it really kick-started something in my mind that said, all right, you've got a new life, let's start afresh. And here I am. Okay, that was 2 minutes, sorry. All right, one of the first questions I'd like to talk to you about is someone asked me, what are the stereotypes that anorexics are subject to, and how does this make them feel essentially? And I'll start off with male stereotypes because I am male. And the first thing that a lot of people think is that male anorexics are very weak individuals. You look at them, you look at a male, and the sort of stereotype that you build in your mind is a very muscular figure. Um, and when you see a male anorexic, it's the complete opposite. And yeah, physically they may look weak, but mentally they are constantly in a battle. And they are truly strong individuals to try and fight this illness. So, it's a complete untruth to think that male anorexics are weak. You know, when I was in treatment, I was constantly battling with myself, and sometimes I lost, but sometimes I won, and those drove me forward. So, yeah, that's an example of a male stereotype. And a sub question to this was: are male anorexics subject to an equal number of stereotypes as to females? And I think that might not be true. And this is because, the media, they heavily focus anorexia and general eating disorders on females. And as such, the stereotypes of females has become a lot larger. There are more of them. However, I want to stress that all stereotypes are equally detrimental to the suffering individual. And as such, we shouldn't be thinking about how many stereotypes there are, but why are they there, and how can we get around it? And one of the answers to this is we should try and really build awareness. I'm trying to do that at the moment. I'm, appearing on radio shows, trying to represent male anorexics and to say that, these stereotypes are complete nonsense. And, I'll put in the comment description the various charities that are trying to raise awareness, because there are so many of them out there. Right, the next question, it's from a parent who thinks their child is becoming anorexic, and what they've asked me is how to distinguish healthy food eating to an eating disorder. And I went searching on the internet, and I found a sort of test that you can try. It's not very nice, but it's called the SCOFF test. S, it stands for, do you make yourself sick because you feel uncomfortably full? C, do you worry that you've lost control over how much you eat? O, have you recently lost more than 1 stone, which is about 6.3 kilograms, in a 3-month period? The first F, do you believe yourself to be fat when others say you are too thin? The last F, would you say that food dominates your life? I know this isn't very sensitive. It's not a very sensitive test, but it gives you a good indication. And I think if you have 2 or more, you may be developing an eating disorder. You might not have one yet, but you might want to think about trying to seek help. The next question is how to deal with this controlling aspect of anorexia, and how do you go from having all the control when you're at home to having no control while you're in an eating disorder unit. And as I've said so many times, anorexia is a disease of control. You control how much you eat, but also you control what you eat, how you may eat it. You see anorexics and they eat things in very strange ways. So I remember when I was in the eating disorder unit, if they were given a sandwich, they'd deconstruct it, or if they were given a Twix, which was a chocolate bar, they'd take off the layers. These kind of OCDs, if you will, of eating food is another way of them trying to control how they eat it. But not only are they controlling food, but they're also controlling other aspects of their life, and this can include, completely minor things of your daily routine, but it means a lot to them. And they also try to control other people's lives, which, if you are a sufferer, you will know that you're doing it. And if you are the parent of a sufferer, you know that they are doing it. And this all relates to the disease. And, when you go to an inpatient unit and you have this control taken away from you, you feel completely powerless, which is why a lot of anorexics and people with eating disorders develop obsessive compulsive disorders, because they're trying to control anything in their life. So, for example, as I said previously, I started washing my hands quite a lot, and if you try and rationalize these thoughts and think, why am I doing this? You might stop doing it, and it's how I stopped washing my hands. For example, I thought, one minute, why am I washing my hands this much? It makes no sense whatsoever. And I went to therapy, and I gradually tapered off this. So it takes time, but you have to really keep on fighting at it, and don't just think, oh, I'll have an off day. There are no off days, I'm afraid. Right, the last question that I'd like to address is from a parent who thinks their child is anorexic, and they're asking me, how do they supervise their child at home, and how do they deal with their child not being in the house? So, for example, when they're with their friends or at school. And, trying to supervise your child is a major issue, because you don't want to be too imposing, but at the same time, you want to know what they're doing. And, from previous lessons of how my dad was doing everything, You should try and supervise your child at all times, but you cannot do it in a dominating sense. And what I mean by this is that despite you watching what your child's doing, you should not impose your will onto them. And this is because, they have when you're anorexic, or just if you have any eating disorder, you have this sense of paranoia. And if you feel as though people are trying to control what you're doing, it can be heavily detrimental to what you're trying to do. You're trying to make them better, but by saying you have to do this, they won't listen and they will get worse. So, yeah, if you want to try and speak to your child, you shouldn't do it in an intervening sense. You shouldn't get the whole family together because, they may be quite paranoid about it. So a one-on-one, talk with your child could do wonders. When I was near my worst, my dad, whenever we were in the car, he'd just kind of speak to me, and I remember it, and it was you know very important in my treatment path. So yeah, you should try and do that. In terms of when you're outside of the house, you should let your friends, if they don't already know, if you should let their friends know that they may have an eating disorder, so that they can report back to you what is going on. But also, for example, in school, you should let the teachers know, because they have so many things going on that they may not realise what is going on with that single child. So yeah, just make everyone aware. That's what you should try and do. Okay, I've got about 15 questions left to start typing up on, but I'll try and get those out within the next week. I'll see you guys later.